Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Casper.
What were you doing 250 years ago? I hope nobody was alive. Actually, if you were, if you think you were, let us know. I'd love to talk to you and love to get your thoughts. But 250 years ago, Team America, Team USA, a month from today will be their 250th anniversary. So everybody's doing 250 themes. And, well, I wanted to do a 250 countdown of the, I don't know the best way to, I don't want to say best or most memorable, but so the definition I keep throwing out there is you can't tell the history of sports in America without all of these things: players, coaches, games, plays, teams, all that stuff. So I've already done leagues because I think that's the basis. You got to start with the leagues. I've done the first group of 10. I'm not ranking them. That's just too impossible. So it's just a 250 overall. Did some players, did some coaches. So you know what? Let's do some plays. When you think about sports, American sports, games in America from the last 250 years, one of the biggest things, we think of certain plays all the time, right? We think of plays in our minds. We think about the best plays of all time, or the plays that will live on in history. So these are just the first 10. All right, I'm not ranking them, but first up, if I'm going to the football world, you got to go with the catch, the 1981 NFC Championship game, 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, Joe Montana, hitting Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone, the catch. When you got a play that's got a name for it, that's one of the most iconic NFL plays of all time, one of the most iconic sports plays of all time. I swear, probably every 49ers Cowboys game, it could be a regular season game, that play is going to be played. It's going to be brought back. It's going to be filmed, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go. It's right there. It's one of the most iconic plays of all time, one of the most iconic images of all time, with Dwight Clark stretching to make that catch and staying in bounds too. So the catch, you can't tell the history of sports. You can't tell the history of the NFL, and you can't tell the history of sports without mentioning the catch from Joe Montana to Dwight Clark in that NFC Championship game in 1981. Staying with football for the next, the next couple more. A little bit earlier, the Immaculate Reception, Steelers. Franco Harris. I know there's debate. Did he actually catch it? Replay, film, and all that. There's some debate about it. But Raiders, Steelers, the ricochet, we haven't seen a play like that. And we've seen Hail Marys where they're tipped and they're caught. But, you're talking about, a ricochet from Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, right spot, right moment, right time, right awareness to make that catch and to go in there and score the touchdown after that too. Again, when you talk about one of the most iconic, I don't even know if I'd call it like a best play. I would just call it one of the most iconic. When I think about best plays, I think about like a great catch, like an Odell Beckham Jr. catch or a Hail Mary. This was just one of the most iconic. So it was a great play, but a lot of luck involved in that too. So, but easily one of the most famous plays in the history of the NFL and in the history of sports, regardless if you think it's a catch or not, regardless if you think the ball touched the ground when Franco Harris. I know a lot of people still think that. Maybe they're mostly Raiders fans out there. I don't know. But regardless of what you think, it is an iconic play in the history of sports in that game, in a playoff game in 1972. So, and that's a play that will live in infamy, and it'll continue to always be played. And again, it's one of the best, one of the most iconic plays in NFL history. And then we got to go with the sneak. The Ice Bowl, the sneak. Every Packers fan knows the story, right? You call Bart Starr calls timeout. He goes over to Vince Lombardi on the sideline. Coach, running backs can't get their footing. I could get in there. I'm already set. Jerry Kramer, can you get a block? Can you get that block on there? And it's like every Wisconsin sports fan, every Packers fan knows the story, knows the play. And, it's one of the most iconic games, which, alert, that game will be mentioned later on in our top 250 countdown. But that play of, Bart Starr making that quarterback sneak, knowing, the NFL championship game to go to the Super Bowl, and knowing that no more timeouts and the position of the field. And you want to talk about I have that image framed up in my man cave too. And, it's just, there's so many different elements to that photo and to that play, and just the elements. It's one of the most iconic. It's a simple play by a lot of standards, but it's one of the most iconic plays of sports history when you factor in everything that kind of went with it too. So the sneak, the quarterback sneak. Let's switch to a couple of baseball ones first off. Now this one I know is there's some conspiracy to whether it actually happened, but it's a legend. It's some lore, and we're going to say that because we still talk about it. We're talking about Game 3 of the 1932 World Series, Ruth calling his shot. And I know a lot of people now have questioned whether he called it or not. Did he actually do that? For this, well, we're just going to say he did because we still talk about it, right? It's nearly 100 years later, and every kid has done it. Mm-hmm. Every kid has done it in the backyard, probably in the backyard. I don't know if they've actually done it in games or Little League, but we've all done it at some point in time. Whether we're in the backyard playing against our friends, and, we're doing it. Jake Taylor did it in the movie of Major League, and Bob Uecker, Harry Doyle, talk about it's, pointing to the center field bleachers, predicting where he was going to make that or where he was going to hit it. So it's an iconic play, whether it actually happened or not, because throughout his life, Ruth gave varying accounts, sometimes playing along with the legend of predicting a home run, and other times admitting he was just engaging in a heated banter with the opposing team, which was the Cubs at that point. It's still iconic. And when you talk about the history of baseball, when kids who probably they know who Babe Ruth is, but they may not know exactly who Babe Ruth is and just how iconic he is, we've all done it, right? We've all called our shot. So you got to do the Ruth calling his shot in the 32 World Series. Another baseball one, I'm going with Hank Aaron hitting number 715. I can still picture, I wasn't around when it happened, but hitting 715, rounding the bases, a very young Craig Sager, who was a longtime NBA reporter, but he was actually a reporter out in the field. You had fans on the field when he's rounding the base. You're talking about an iconic moment given where, the history of not only breaking Babe Ruth's home run record, but it's Hank Aaron and kind of the culture and where the world was and such. It's an iconic image. It was so cool. Was it last year, 2 years ago when the All-Star, I think it was last year, the All-Star game was in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had the light show of Hank Aaron's home run. So that was do you remember that? That was so cool to see that. But I can still, even though I wasn't around, I wasn't alive, I've seen the replays, and you can go on YouTube and see all that. But it's an iconic play because of breaking this record by Babe Ruth, right? And it's Hank Aaron that's doing it, and the fans on the field and such. You can't tell the history of baseball with that is more iconic than Barry Bonds breaking the record. Sorry, it's we could get into a debate, especially if you ask my soon to be 9-year-old. He he thinks Hank Aaron is the record holder still because, in his words, Barry Bonds cheated. So, and that's not a lot of influence from me. Believe me, it's not. He learned that on his own. So, staying with baseball, we're going to go to the 1988 World Series. Dodgers. Kirk Gibson with the fist pump going around the bases. Now, once you get a little older, if you've played some slow pitch softball, a lot of guys might have did the old Kirk Gibson fist pump going around the bases. If you've watched some funny videos that I can't play because they're very inappropriate, but there's a gentleman out there that likes to do little baseball videos, and he calls it the Kirk Gibson, and it. Do you know what that play? Can you picture? You'll have to. Yeah. He goes. Yeah. He hits the home run, and he's going around the base. He's just kind of doing a little fist pump, and that it's an iconic sports video, iconic play. So essentially, what happened was Tommy Lasorda inserted Gibson as a pinch hitter. Gibson, who was, hobbling, hurt, old. Vin Scully commenting, and look who's coming up. Gibson quickly fouled off 2 pitches, getting behind the count 0-2, and then he swung and dribbled the ensuing pitch, foul down the first base line, which seemed to confirm his inability to swing with any authority. Gibson took an outside pitch, called a ball, fouled off a pitch, and then took another outside pitch to work to a 2-2 count. On the 7th pitch of the at-bat, another ball, making it a full count. Gibson, just kind of reading here, Davis, who was on base, stole second. Dodger manager Tommy Lasorda later recounted it was pre-planned that if the count got to 2 strikes on Gibson, they would have Davis steal second, figuring that A's manager Tony La Russa would not elect to intentionally walk Gibson if there were already 2 strikes against him. Once Davis was at second, Lasorda was just hoping Gibson could muscle a pitch to the outfield for a game-tying single. Gibson would later recount that prior to the series, Dodgers scout Mel Dieter had provided a report on Eckersley, which claimed that with a 3-2 count against a left-handed hitter, one could be absolutely certain that Eckersley would throw a backdoor slider. Gibson said that when the count reached 3-2, he stepped out of the batter's box and his mind could hear the scout's voice with its distinctive southern drawl reiterating that same piece of advice. With that thought in mind, Gibson stepped back in the batter's box, and thus, when Eckersley did in fact throw a backdoor slider, it was exactly the pitch Gibson was expecting, swinging almost entirely with his upper body. Gibson then hit the pitch over the right field fence. He limped around the bases and pumped his fist as teammates stormed the field. Dodgers won the game 5-4. So, got to throw that one in there. Let's go with the Willie Mays catch over the shoulder. You're nodding your head, and that's even an older one, but we know that one, right? The Willie Mays, it's still, again, I think kids kind of, maybe not as much as calling the shots, but it's an iconic. I'm just glad we have video of it for a lot of these, right? You think about the importance. And you think about, and this might actually be a good one that I might have to throw in there later on, but just the emergence of technology in sports so that we can relive a lot of these moments, because a lot of them, it probably would be lost to time, like the Ruth one.
Yeah.
If we would have had video, we'd actually know the full-on truthful answer, right? But the catch in baseball, so we talked about the catch in football with Montana and Clark, the catch in baseball made by Willie Mays during Game 1 of the 54 World Series at the Polo Grounds, which was a huge field. That's a field that I wish I could.
Love the Polo Grounds.
Yeah, I want to go into a time machine and go visit the Polo Grounds. But it was the 8th inning, scored tied 2-2. Cleveland hitter hit a deep fly ball to center that had the runners on base poised to score. However, Willie Mays made an over-the-shoulder catch while on the run to record the out, and his throw back to the infield prevented one of the runners from advancing. Giants won the game 5-2. So very iconic image. Next up, I'm going to go with a couple basketball ones here, and I'm going to kind of fly through this. But we got to go with the Christian Laettner shot. Duke, Kentucky. Grant Hill throws the ball all the way down the court. Leitner catches it, does a little turnaround jumper, and nails the shot. Probably one of the most iconic shots, if not the most iconic shot in college basketball history. You've got the Jordan one in the national championship too, but I think when you ask a lot of college basketball fans, it's the Leitner shot. It's making that full court pass and having enough time to kind of do a little turnaround and making that shot in that moment. The magnitude of the game. I mean, it's hard not to. That's an iconic one there too. So, and then we kind of have to end it on a couple here. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, let's do the final two by the name of somebody named Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Jordan's 89 shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he makes the shots, jumps up in the air over Craig Elo. It's probably what Craig Elo is mostly known for. Jordan makes the shot, jumps up in the air. You can hear the announcer. The Bulls win. The Bulls win. The fist pumping from Michael Jordan. I mean, that's probably one of Michael Jordan's very early of the many plays that he has had over the years. One of the most iconic plays of all time, jumping up in the air and making that shot in the playoffs against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Got to throw that one in there. And then the dunk contest for Jordan. Going from the free throw line. I mean, come on. That when you think about Air Jordan and you think about the Jumpman logo and you think about flight, all those words go to Michael Jordan. So, I mean, Michael Jordan's going to be on here a couple more times for plays. I'll just tell you that. But, I mean, when you talk about iconic plays in sports, Jordan's got a few of them. And those two early on in his career is the dunk competition, free throw line, taking flight, and then the Craig Elo one too. Yes, the flu game one's going to be on there coming up a little bit later on. So, all right, those are 10 plays, but we got a lot more plays to go because we got 220 more of these things to go here, I think. No, 210 because we've done 40 now, so 210.